Hello, welcome again once more to another Grumpy Guy podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Adi, and you are going to join us for a commentary on Highlander 3.
The tagline is The Sorcerer, is it in the UK? The Sorcerer, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In America, Final Dimension, I think.
It was called Final Dimension in the States. I'm not exactly sure why, but...
And because obviously, when you look at the whole Highlander sort of scheme, unless they believe that this was the final film, it isn't the Final Dimension, is it? There's plenty more films made.
And it's not only that, it might be like the Harry Potter thing, though, where, you know, like when the first one came out, or it was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Yes,
and they
course.
changed it to the Sorcerer's Stone.
In America, because the Americans may not have understood what the Philosopher's Stone was.
Absolutely, kind of like... I can think of another one. They did it for 1989's James Bond film, where it was originally going to be called License Revoked. And they changed the name because Americans, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to slate you, didn't understand what revoked meant. So they changed it to License to Kill.
Which is the complete opposite of what it was.
Exactly. Oh my god.
That's ridiculous. So yeah, we've already gone off on a tangent, but it you know, that does make a lot of sense for changing subtitles. Loads of films have done that in the past. Now we're kicking in. We can see the opening credits. It's kind of giving us an overview of the Japanese setting. This is obviously the manufacture of a samurai sword that we can see happening now or soon to happen. Visually, you know, look straight away, the opening title is very reminiscent, I think, of the John Milius Cohn The Barbarian movie. You know, the first thing is the smelting scene of the sword being manufactured. That's the first thing you see in that film.
Which was kind of like the big thing about Conan, wasn't it? It was the sword. Everything,
the Riddler steel and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, definitely. And again, you know, the sword's important in terms of the plot line for every Highlander film, but they never really went into... It's funny, actually, it's something that I've observed really over the years watching the Highlander films. They never really went into any great detail over the swords. The only time, really, that the samurai sword is mentioned in any detail, really, is in the first film, where Ramirez is explaining that an emperor had given him the sword because it was one of its kind, like Shikiko, his daughter, and it's supposed to be a Masamune. I think he says the emperor is Masamune, but actually Masamune wasn't an emperor. He was actually a very legendary samurai sword maker, and he existed. You know, to own a Masamune samurai sword in reality would mean that you had several £1 million worth of sword in your possession.
Or maybe you just considered him an emperor because...
Well, no, he actually says the Emperor Masamune, you know, made this for me.
Oh, I was just thinking maybe he thinks the Emperor because of his sword-making abilities. He's the Emperor sword-maker.
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, it's possible.
It is possible. I like that, actually. It's quite a nice little explanation. But yeah, that was the Katana sword, and again, Katana is the name of the bad guy in the second film, so obviously sword references. But I think that they kind of missed an opportunity to really go into the detail. They mentioned the Toledo Salamanca broadsword that Fazil had in the first film, and the Kurgan's got a massive long broadsword, which is a ridiculous sword because it's in two parts. The blade fall apart. But the kind of sword cult, for want of a better phrase, in the Highlander films isn't really given the sort of weighting, as it's obviously clearly got some weighting in this, because they're showing the manufacture of the sword.
Not only that, it seems to be the big thing through the entire film is the sword.
It is, yeah.
It's almost like
definitely.
The sword holds the power of the immortal, I think. Or they, what was it they say? He says it in a little while, doesn't he? Where the sword reacts to him. Now it knows its master, I believe, or something like that.
Ah, okay. That's kind of similar to Harry Potter, isn't it? With the wands and
exactly.
stuff like that.
That's
the
what
wands
Harry Potter is. It's a great big Highlander rip-off.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Would that make Harry Potter fucking... Oh no, that would make that little gay Daniel Radcliffe, that would make him, Connor MacLeod. And I really don't like that.
Is Daniel Radcliffe gay?
No, I'm just saying it.
Oh, okay. So he's allegedly...
He's not really gay. I don't mean that. I found him really, really feminine in those films.
He's quite a geek in reality. I actually quite like him because he's very intelligent guy.
I just find him a bit effeminate. That's
bless him. This scene that we're looking at now is really the kind of rape and pillage scene to show how nasty these three immortals are on their quest to find Nakano, the sorcerer, in the mountains of Niri. Again, you know, we mentioned Conan right at the beginning, that this scene is very reminiscent to Conan the Barbarian, with the hordes coming in and under Thulsa Doom and killing Conan's family and leaving him destitute and orphaned. Obviously it doesn't happen in that way in this film, but I think it's a good way of demonstrating early on how ruthless.
He's just an evil man.
Yeah, this, you know, the little Japanese guy, he wouldn't really answer his question, so he just destroyed the entire village, which, you know, talk about a bit of an overreaction. He's having a bit of a hissy fit there. So
I want to know where he is.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kill all of you bastards. Don't, you cunts. Yeah, so he's, bless him. So he's on his way. He hasn't got the answers, but somehow he still manages to find him. I don't quite understand how that works.
I wouldn't surprise me if there was another little scene in there where somebody went, "No way!"
Like a little child. I know where he is.
Yeah.
Oh, do you? That sort of thing.
Yeah, he's over that way.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Thanks. Probably a little kid called the Kurgan or something like that. But actually, funny enough, really, talking about the Kurgan, there was a series of comics that was released in the late 1990s, maybe early 2000s. And one of those comics talks about the origins of the Kurgan. And in that story, they feature Kane. Kane's actually featured in that comic, and he looks like Mario Van Peebles. So it's obviously it was done after this film. But I like the way they built in the fact that Kane knew the Kurgan and was part of his criminal gang, really.
So that's why he's pissed off then, because he's not dead yet though at this point, is he?
No, he isn't. No, the Kurgan is still alive.
Yeah, very much so. He
stage,
doesn't die to the first film, does he? Right
exactly.
At the end, he's in the future.
Because really at this stage that we're seeing now, where Connor's being trained by Nakano, the only person that we've seen being killed, I think, is Ramirez. I don't think we've seen any other immortals being killed at this stage.
No, they mentioned it, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's the thing about this film. You don't have to have seen the first film to pick it up.
No,
because all the exposition is in the first 10 minutes of the film, explaining what's going on.
Exactly. What's quite funny about this film, though, is that they reference, and we'll see this later on, they reference the Kurgan, because we see that visually. They reference Heather, and they reference the battle between the MacLeods and the Frasers. What they don't reference, other than by name, is Ramirez.
You know why, don't you? Because no doubt Sean Connery went, "You're not using my fucking likeness." With that, because if you have to use his likeness, you have to pay him.
Really?
Yeah, because no doubt he's got something like that. He's got something built in where it says, "You use my likeness, you pay me."
Fuck.
Because that's how it would be. Because Connery's like that.
It's a bit cheeky, really, isn't it? You'd think they would say, "You can fuck off. We've paid you for the film. You were paid for it. We own the footage. We own the copyrights to it."
You would think so, but this is also Sean Connery we're talking about, who never seems to take much shit off anybody, does he?
He's a shrewd man, if that's what he's done.
It wouldn't surprise me. He says, "No, I was contracted for the second one. The third one has got nothing to do with me. You do not use my likeness." Although they could have argued it back and said, "Actually, we own the likeness of that
that's
character."
What I said. We own the film. You know, we filmed it as part of that. Contractually, we've paid you for it. But you're right. He would probably have had it sewn up. I mean, even in the early '80s or mid '80s, when the first film was made, Sean Connery was still a massive star to be able to get in there. So I would have suspected that, like you say about his likeness with the agreements there, that his lawyers would have had it fucking well sewn up.
I would have thought so, definitely.
Yeah. Even then, he would have said, I'm doing it for Highlander 1, or I'm doing it for Highlander 2, but for Highlander 3 you can bollocks."
Yeah, because he saw the second one and went, "What the fuck am I starting?"
It's probably true, isn't it? They probably said, "Oh no, I'm not going to chop your head off." And this is a weird thing. He says something about, not even for all this power and stuff. And Conor MacLeod says, not even here, not even. But the thing is, he says not even with an American accent or slight American accent. Bearing in mind, this is still, 15, 1540. I mean, it's 1542 when he was with Heather, so maybe it says a year later, 1543, 1544.
Actually, does say he disappeared a couple of years later.
So 1544 then?
Yeah, at least.
So in 1544, somehow a man who was born and bred in the Highlands of Scotland, who would be talking Gaelic and not English, has travelled the world, or travelled part of the world looking for, you know, for answers, and has somehow picked up an American accent from a culture that doesn't yet exist. America as a culture, in terms of its accents, didn't really exist until the late 19th century, with all the frontier and the cowboys and that. Even after American independence in 1785, 1786, the American accent wasn't there. It was still Irish, it was still German, Jewish, English. The concoction, that cosmopolitan mix of accents, had not amalgamated into the standardised American accent yet.
So really, then what we're saying is it's probably because Christopher Lambert has to use an American accent so he can speak English properly, because at this point he'd only been doing an English voice for about, what, 10, maybe 12 years?
That's interesting you mention about his accent as well, because you probably already know this, but when they made the first film, they decided that, and this is what I love about the way they made that film, is that they knew that because this man had supposedly been around for 4.5 centuries, that somehow he would have picked up essences of lots of different languages. He wouldn't just speak with American or with a French accent, he's been everywhere. So they need to reflect that in his voice. And because they had pretty much a blank template really in Christopher Lambert, because in terms of his
English
vocabulary, exactly.
He only started speaking English. He spoke English for one film, didn't he? Which was the Tarzan film.
Yeah, Greystoke. Yeah. So because of that, they had a blank check really to start. You know, a blank thing to start with, sheet canvas. So what they did is they got lots of different voice coaches to train him on and off. And these voice coaches had different accents, so like
different
French, American. So he picked up their mixture of languages, you know, and that's evidenced in the scene where Garfield in the first film, the police guy says, "You talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?" And he just looks at him and he goes, "Lots of different places." Now, an American wouldn't say lots; they'd say lots or whatever. But that lots is a very unusual.
Pronunciation.
Yeah, exactly. Very unusual phoneme to hear from somebody who you'd expect to be American or French. Even the French wouldn't say lots. You know, it's very English, and that's what or semi-Scottish. That's what I love about it. Here we're sort of talking about references. Here we're being shown the Kurgan and the similarity between Kurgan and Kane, and as I mentioned about the comic, they've kind of shown you there's a link there.
Connection between the two.
Exactly. Obviously the wound that he's just been had inflicted on him is reminiscent of what the Kurgan gave him, but you know, their fighting styles would be similar if they'd come from the same sort of regions.
I agree, but I've got to say about Connor, you know, if he comes across as a bit of a pussy, Connor, because he gets his ass whooped in every scene.
Yeah.
You would think after 500 years or whatever it is, he should be like, I don't know, like a fucking Jedi by now, you know?
But remember here, though, that this is still 500 years on. This
but even later in the film, he's not particularly that good.
No, you just get thorough beatings on a regular basis.
It does, in all films, if you watch them. I'd expect him to be like fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi from, you know, Hugh McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
You know, who does loads of spins and stuff, and he really doesn't. So, you know, I think really he's a lazy immortal. He couldn't be bothered to learn.
Yeah, it is a strange situation. I suppose, you know, you've got to argue that they can't be that good, because otherwise there'd be no sort of interesting elements to the fight. He would just be like one hit, gone, done. Because the samurai, if he got really good with his sword, the samurai are trained to kill with the first blow. And the first blow is generally when they unsheath the sword.
That's right, they cut across.
Exactly. The design of the samurai sword is curved. So when you pull the sword out of the scabbard, the first strike is actually as you're removing it, and by rights a good samurai warrior would be able to decapitate in the first hit. So if you know Conor McLeod has got the katana, it just goes voomf, head off. There can be only one. See you later. That's the end of the film in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. So now we're going to draw him out, getting his ass whooped for an hour.
Exactly.
Hour and 20.
It's very similar to the Rocky films in that respect. You have to have like a 20-round fight, otherwise it'd be one punch dead. You know,
pretty much.
And the credits would roll, and that would be the end of the film. You know, you'd have to. By now there'd be something like 6,000 Rocky films because they'd last like 30 seconds.
In your polo, I'm going to take you out in 1 foot.
That's very good. I love your impressions. The quickening in this scene is shit. Excuse me. The quickening is really shit in this scene because
it's just the budget.
It's just blue blobs and crap, isn't it?
I think they cut the budget. You know, I was thinking about if you know, like something like Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and how the effects are terrible.
Yeah, with that nuclear bloke.
We see originally that money for that film was originally about 40 million.
Oh, really?
And then something went down. I think that's Canon as well, isn't it? Canon Group took that.
Oh, is it?
Globus or whatever it is?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. Forgive me, viewers. But
was it Mario Casar, or was that just the first film? I can't remember.
No, I don't recall. All I know is that they cut the budget repeatedly, and it went down to 17 million. Oof. So all their effects budget was taken up, which is why it looks so shocking with the and all that kind of stuff.
So was that 17 million basically just towards salaries then, and that was it?
It must have been. So they must have had a very, very tiny amount to actually be able to do the effects. And not only that, Christopher Reeve refused point blank and said, no, my flying scenes are done with wires. Because he said, I will not stand in front of a screen pretending to do this.
Oh, so they were going to start doing chroma key green screen stuff.
It wouldn't surprise me, or at least a version of it back in, what would it be, about 87 I think it was. So he refused.
They did do green screen flying though in the first film though, didn't they?
They didn't do green screen. It would have been a projection, wouldn't it? It would have been the projection stuff in the background.
Is that really how they did it in the first film? They did no chroma key whatsoever?
No, it was projection. So
wow.
it would have been interlaid with him lying on a ball.
So that's why it looked so realistic, because they effectively put him right in the right context in terms of lighting, as opposed to just plonking. You know, anybody can do it now, desktop wise.
And that's the thing, you know.
Plonking background.
I remember talking about the second Highlander. We were talking about how Christopher Lambert liked to do his own stunts. Christopher Reeve was exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so all those shots that you'd see him taking off, he would go up 70, 80 feet on wires and come in properly that way. So it just added that element of it. And when by the time they got to the Superman 4, it just looked awful. And I can find little redeeming things I like in it.
There's a few bits, yeah.
But there's not a lot, you know, so...
Getting back to the film now, what we've got the terrible trio of immortals about to escape.
Yeah, I mean, me and James were just talking about this because we watched this film before we did the podcast, and now we're watching it again so we can podcast. And what exactly would these people have been doing for 400 years? You know, me and James are sure they would have tunnelled out, but then we decided that they were probably tunnelling each other.
Yeah.
It's more than likely. I mean, you think it through, you know, 400 years, you know, you can't go anywhere.
They've got wants and needs.
Absolutely.
And they can't have a crafty five-finger shuffle because they're immortal hand shandy because they're all in the same room.
Absolutely. So. And because Mario Van Peebles is the boss, he's the one that's been doing the giving, unfortunately.
And the rest have been receiving in the... Tunnel of fudge.
I despise this bit of the film, I really do.
It's ridiculous. One of my observations that I made is that they're pristine, their hair is the same, there's no matting from sweat or sperm, there's no rust or disintegration of anything. They all look the same as they did 400 years ago or whatever it was. Which is ridiculous. Not even their beards have grown.
Or their hair.
We
can only assume they've been braiding each other's hair for 400 years.
Yeah, it was touching in there, which is a bit... Yeah, you know, and there's no honour amongst thieves in this one because, you know, we're about to see Kane kill his equally long-haired friend here. What I don't understand is why didn't that happen when they first went into the cave?
Yeah, we had this conversation though, didn't we? Because if you think about it at that point, there was loads and loads and loads of immortals around at that point.
Yeah.
As far as he's concerned, he must feel it every time somebody gets their head taken off. Connor feels it because we see that in the next scene.
Yes, we do.
So they must have been in there feeling all these different people getting killed. He knows he's down to the last few, so he was going to take their heads off at some point anyway.
Yeah. But why didn't he just do it? Because, with all this destruction and mayhem that's caused, if he'd have taken both of their heads one by one whilst in that cave, there's a likelihood that he might have been able to have escaped 400 years ago.
Well, it looks like.
Or do you think he's just been sneaky and they just thought, well, let's just leave the others to kill themselves so there's less people to fight with?
More than possible. I mean, it's not only that either. If he killed them straight away, he's blocked in there anyway.
Yeah.
Who the hell's he going to talk to for 400 years? Imagine that. You spent 400 years around the same people. You must run out of things to say.
I've had meetings where it's felt like that.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like you're sitting and, we can sit and watch a film and chat about it.
Yeah.
But if you spend 24 hours with those people over and over, you run out of things to say.
Yeah, they must know everything. I mean, that's what we were talking. They've been bumming.
Yeah.
Because they've just run out of things to talk about.
I can imagine it now. Oh, yeah. Do you remember when we took that head off down there? Fancy bum.
Yeah.
I'm
just thinking how many fucking games of I Spy they must have had to have gone through before they eventually decided that anal sex was an option.
Yeah, it's rock, isn't it? Yeah, it's rock.
Yeah. It's Samurai Sword, isn't it? Yeah. Exactly. This is a strange thing as well. Christopher Lambert, but Connor McLeod / Russell Nash has got a son. I don't think it even explains where he came from. I guess that him and Brenda, abducted him or adopted him, whichever one. I suspect it's the latter. But I don't understand. It doesn't even explain what they're doing in Marrakesh either.
Doesn't he say at some point that he tried to pick his pocket or something?
Oh, does he really?
Oh, I can't remember if that's right. He called him picking his pocket or something.
Which is a bit like Oliver Twist.
Yeah, or something like that.
This man here, for our UK viewers, is also the guy that plays Raquel's father in Only Fools and Horses, and I think the first episode that we see him in is an episode called Time on Our Hands, and I think it's the one where he finds the John Harrison.
It's the only one you see him
watch.
in as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. The Lesser Watch by John Harrison, and he looks very similar there. So I think 1994 is probably a similar sort of time scale, isn't it? About 10 years ago. Yeah, this is funny. This is a decade old. This film. It feels like it's
that's 20
more
years.
recent. Sorry, 20 years. Yeah,
20 years.
20 years. Sorry.
How long time?
Yeah, 20 years ago, which is crazy, isn't it?
It is. Time flies.
20 years. I mean, there was a time when I would watch a film and I think, right, it's 20 years ago. And 20 years ago was like 1970 something. Because I remember watching films in the 90s and seeing something like Grease and thinking, Christ, this is 20 years old, this film. And now this film is 20 years old. And I remember seeing it at the cinema 20 years ago.
1995.
Ridiculous.
I don't know. I remember watching this film when I was a younger man. Not saying my age, but I remember watching
a lot younger, yeah.
A lot younger than I am now. And just thinking, I'm glad they made this because the second one was so shit.
Yeah. Even at such a young age you realise that there was a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, it was obvious to me that the reason nothing from the second one, obviously you could talk about the timeline, that none of that stuff in the second one has happened.
Exactly. But they've also in 2024.
Yeah, but they've also mentioned the planet
Zeist
and all that sort of bollocks. I think whoever came up with this idea just said, listen, do another Highlander, but if you fucking reference that second one, we're going to give you the biggest fucking bumming you've ever seen in your life.
That's why he never talks about Ramirez.
That's why he never talks about Ramirez. I think they're totally wiping the slate clean. Yeah. So really, you can consider this to be the sequel to the first one, because that second one is just fucking shocking, as you've already heard in our podcast before.
Exactly. So. This is she's obviously some researcher, isn't she? She runs like a museum, and she's a lab kind of person, and she's archaeologist and metallurgist and that sort of stuff. She's looking into the legend of Nakano, and obviously now they've found these headless corpses. Or a headless corpse, and she's going to take samples and then realise eventually that the two are dated the same, yet the corpse is fresh, which is an unusual thing. You could argue that the
vacuum effect of the cave,
or you could argue that just the clothes were 400 years old and the body's new. But
they obviously didn't go down that route, did they?
Exactly, they didn't carbon date the body, which would have been an interesting thing because they would have they would have said that he was newborn.
Yeah.
Which I think they kind of do say later on, don't
they? They do, yeah. There's like a newborn. Oh, here we go. We're getting a very whimsical sort of scene now with Christopher Lambert. Sorry, Conor McLeod.
Russell Nash, yeah. The Highlander. Oh, something I forgot to mention is that in the first, and viewers, please do this as well because it's quite amusing to do that. In the first kind of 8 to 10 minutes of the film, right from the beginning, all the way through to like 10 minutes in, I think the word Highlander is mentioned about 12 times in 10 minutes. So it's kind of like every kind of minute or just under, somebody says Highlander.
Just to remind you the film's
beating
Highlander.
You constantly over the head that this guy is the Highlander. I suspect it's a form of exposition in the sense that the whole reason why Blondie gets involved is because she traces this Highlander who has been kicked out of the Clan MacLeod, disowned and shunned.
Oh, no, I despise this scene. Do you know why I hate this scene?
Yeah, talk us through the hatred, please. Yeah.
Well, it's got to be okay. So he gets surrounded. If you're watching this, everyone, he gets surrounded by gang members, the usual New Yorkin bad guys.
Although they are better than the ones in Highlander too.
Yeah, the thing is, you've got to imagine now that Conor McLeod is what? Let's see, 500 to 700 years old. He should be an absolute fucking master at taking people down.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So for some reason he gets taken down by 4 people, which I'm sorry, for that kind of awesome fighting skills that he should have by now, he should have whipped through these people like he was Steven Seagal in the 80s instead of the Steven Seagal of 2012 where
exactly.
he can't even stand up without taking a deep breath because it's too much work.
Something else that you notice as well, if you watch Highlander 2, him and Ramirez take about 6,000 bullets.
And they get up.
And they get up. He's taken 2 bullets and he's on the slab.
He's like, I'm fucked.
And then he goes mental here because he's just coming out of the fact that he's been shot. And he's going, you know, what the hell's wrong? What's going on? What are you doing to me? Sort of thing. And as a result of that, something very bizarre happens, doesn't it?
Oh, the fact that he gets... They commit him straight away.
Straight away. This guy's been shot, taken into a hospital. He gets up and goes mental, as you'd probably expect if someone, you know, wasn't mortally wounded and they realised what was happening. They'd probably be full of rage or post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever. But instead of that, this 1990s doctor, remember this is 1990s, this isn't like 1890s, this 1990s doctor decides to commit him to a mental asylum. Or to Ward 10 or whatever.
It's not only that as well. Not one person's questioned. Hold on a minute, this man was shot. Where's the holes gone?
Exactly.
Not one person's questioned it.
No, they didn't even operate, did they?
No.
They just wiped it down and gone, oh, hang on a minute, he hasn't been shot. I suppose you could argue that they wiped him down, realised that he hadn't been shot, so therefore why would he cover himself in blood and go mental? Maybe he is a bit lunatic.
And why's he got holes in his jumper and his coat?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. A lot of these things are kind of ignored or brushed over. This is interesting. They didn't make... I would have liked to have seen more in this area. She traces the weave of the tartan, as we're seeing. She's looking at the tartan and looking at why is that placed in a Japanese cave? Why would a Scotsman be in Japan? Which is a good question. I would have loved to have seen some of the research that she did.
Trace it to
going to the villages, maybe retracing some of the steps from the first film, having flashbacks of things that happened, going to various ruins, talking to locals and those sorts of things, going to the castle, all that sort of stuff. I would have loved to have seen all of that. They never did that. Instead they chose to do this and waste some time with some sort of nonsensical shit.
It's a kind of fine with certain films, especially this kind of film, which really didn't move with the times from the 80s action film. If you think about it, it kind of was still an 80s action flick in 1990.
Oh, extremely formulaic, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, if we're a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to sound nasty to the people back in the day.
Yeah, we're not educated, maybe a bit more enlightened.
Yeah, we like a bit more exposition now.
Yeah.
You know, we go deeper into characters and things like that.
I suppose in our defence in the 90s, though, is that, you know, movie making is I think people assume that movie making is, because we're in such modern times, and, you know, again, in maybe 100 years, someone might be listening to this podcast in 100 years' time. How weird's that? But they might be listening to us in 100 years' time talking about this film. Movie making will be vastly different to you, whoever you are in the future listening to this, than to how it is now. And yet we'll be talking about movie making as being a modern development now in 2014. But movie making is an evolving process and is constantly changing. So the people of the 1990s watching this film, to them, yes, they might have thought it was still fairly formulaic, but not as much as we do now, because movie making has evolved so much more in the past 20 years.
And you can see it change full stop. But
audiences change and
with
their expectations.
That's why films like The Expendables are so popular, because people are they want to see that nostalgic action star, you know, which is why they do so well. I love the Expendables films, you know.
Right, you know, Dolph Lundgren and
Dolph Lundgren steals the film.
He's great.
I love Dolph Lundgren.
Highly underrated actor.
He is, and he's got a gigantic dick, apparently, according to Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. You know, he says that in Rapid Fire, doesn't he?
Congratulations.
Showdown.
Yeah. Where he tells him he's got the biggest dick he's ever seen.
He says thank you or something, doesn't he? Thanks for noticing.
And apparently that's true. You know, he's got a gigantic dick. Yeah. And there's some stories that he would, just for a laugh, when he would stay in hotels and stuff like that, he would call up the maid to come up to the room, and he would just go to the door naked, just so he could look at the size of my fucking broadsword.
That's disgraceful.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just so he go, look at it.
Yeah.
It bashes off my fucking ankles.
Lick this bitch.
So, you know, I love Dolph Lundgren, and I can't wait for the third one. But anyway, back to Highlander 3.
This is crazy. You notice there's no hole in his shirt.
Exactly.
Even though it was shot.
There's absolutely nothing.
There's blood, but there's no hole. That's strange.
I'm not thinking that's just... I mean, he was only shot with a 38. I mean, it's not going to make
a massive hole. But it should have made a hole.
It should have been a hole. Exactly.
It was shot about 5 times or something, wasn't it?
So there should be something.
Hole. A laundry is quite an innovative setting, but again, like the factory that we'll talk about later, lots of 1980s and 1990s films use factory settings. I think it's because there's steam and there's like lots. It's like a little labyrinth, it's a labyrinth, and this is as well. But it's reasonably well done, but it's still quite annoying and formulaic. And any modern film, and I'm saying modern in the broadest of terms now, speaking in 2014, any film that uses a factory setting for a fight is either doing it nostalgically, a nod to a previous style, or they're stuck in the past in terms of their filmmaking skills.
Agree.
There's a lot more that you can do. If I had 200 million, for example, off Euro millions, you and I would be going into business making films.
Yeah, I always said that. I would do that too.
We would be awesome. I mean, fuck people like Zack Snyder and Michael Bay and Russell Mulcahy and stuff. And I know that I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Sir Isaac Newton that said something about he's only got that far because he stood on the shoulders of giants. And I think that if we did something like this, we would be referencing back to taking the elements of classic movie making to the next level. But I just know in my heart of hearts that we would be able to make absolutely awesome films.
Oh, I agree.
We'd tackle Highlander. We would go to whoever had the license, Davis and Panzer and whoever, and we would say, let us make the next Highlander.
The thing is, we would also do what every filmmaker that followed the first film seemed to have forgotten. They didn't use the first film as the Bible.
No.
And it's the one thing you never do. If you're going to do a sequel, the idea is to develop the character.
Yeah.
Not ignore it and then create a new character on top
Exactly.
of it.
Make him somebody different.
And that's just not how it's done. So the first film for me is a Bible. In every film that you watch, whether it be Superman, whether it be RoboCop, whether it be James Bond. James Bond is the prime example. Although they've changed his character slightly over the years, all they've really done is just enhance the personalities of each actor that's playing the role.
They've kind of make him the man of the time, don't they?
Yes, exactly. And he's still James Bond.
Yes.
They don't change the fact that he lost his family. His family. They haven't changed the fact that he lost his wife Tracy back in on America's Secret Service and all that sort of stuff. And they reference it through the films. So it should be the same for when they do films like this. They just totally fuck themselves up the arse, because the guy who ever did the writing didn't pay any fucking attention to what the first film did.
So sloppy.
It is. It's sloppy filmmaking. It's sloppy screenwriting. This to me feels like the film was rushed out.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said we're going to lose the license to this one, which is more than likely what happened, because this is quite a long time after Highlander 2. So for me, they must have said, shit, we're going to lose the license to Highlander.
Like 3 years after Highlander 2, I think. Highlander 2 was like 91, I think this is 94 or 95.
So if you think about it, that's quite a long way. You know, they must have gone, we've got to get out, we'll lose the license. That's what they did with Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, after Spider-Man 3 was made, I think the film did amazingly well. They were going to go into the fourth one, and then for some reason they stopped and they said we didn't want to do it. But then they had to make the Amazing Spider-Man because they were going to lose the license. It was going to go back to Marvel. So they had to go, fuck, we need to get a film going, otherwise we're going to lose the license. Exactly.
This is good because we've got a detective that's on the trail of Nash. This guy has always believed, since 1986, when all the murders were going on in New York in the original film, he's always believed that Russell Nash was at the heart of it somewhere. And he's right, he was. You know, in terms of Armand Fazil, it was Connor MacLeod that killed Fazil, that chopped his head off. It was Connor MacLeod that beheaded the Kurgan. It was the Kurgan that killed Vasilek and Sunder Castigier. But Nash is at the heart of it, so he's right.
He's actually an intelligent detective, then.
Exactly, but
he's a bit obsessive with it.
He's a bit of a twat, and he's a bit of a nonsensical character. He should have been. This guy looks like Wesley Snipes, by the way.
The little short. It's like a little mini me version.
Yeah, he is.
He's like
he's like just like mini me, isn't he? This is pretty cool. He's stolen his glasses. It's quite funny. But getting back to what I was saying is that I've forgotten what I was fucking saying.
He was saying that the detective is always
he's always
been on to Nash. Basically.
He's always been on to Nash, and he's right to be on to Nash. But they picked the wrong guy. I still think they should have had Walter Bedsoe,
the original
guy that was, you know, the detective that was tailing him.
He references him.
They talk about Bedsoe,
yeah, they reference him. But I imagine he's been fucking retired or something.
Yeah, I suppose he was maybe 40, 41-ish.
So maybe he went a bit nuts then when he was saying, listen, this guy's chopping people's heads off and having electrical
shit. Yeah, you could have had a breakdown or whatever. Yeah. He never saw any of that, but he was tailing Nash as Moran, the detective that was originally on the murder case from the Madison Square Garden murder of Armand Fazil and Vasilek. He had Bedsoe tail Nash, so maybe the actor just wasn't available or didn't want to get involved.
He probably didn't want to do it.
Or they just didn't approach him. They're just so arrogant that they decided not to approach him. Or maybe the guy wanted more money because he was part, you know, it's the franchise.
Or the fact, once again, the screenwriter was lazy and just thought, fuck it, we can't be bothered, let's put a new dick in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some guy who's cheaper than that actor.
This is very cheap. This is very, very cheap indeed. They use exactly the same actress. So she sounds the same, she looks the same, because she is the fucking same. But I think that they should have used he should have seen something in her that reminded him of that.
Yeah, I do like the transitional back though. You know, when all this scene's over, there's this lovely transition from the background, from the TV to, it's just really well done. I really like that.
This room... the doorway in the room is very reminiscent of a old house in Lincolnshire. I think it's in Lincolnshire near Grantham, called Belton House.
Belton House.
I don't think for 1 minute it's shot in Belton House. It probably isn't, but it just looks like Belton House.
I get the impression some of this film was shot in England though.
Some of it was, yeah, definitely.
Because that English actor that we saw from Only Fools and Horses, they hire local actors, don't they, to come
exactly,
in?
yeah.
So,
and I suspect this is probably shot in France because this is during the period of the Revolution. But it's
there's that transition. How fucking good is that?
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah, that is good. You know, again, if this wasn't Mulcahy as the director, which I think you said that you don't think it is,
direct this one.
There's a nice little nod there in terms of the transitions.
They certainly kept his style for the film, I think.
Definitely.
I wonder why he didn't want to do it. I think after the second one, he must have thought, fuck it, I ain't doing that one.
Yeah, or maybe he just wasn't asked to do it, which could have been a snub by Davis and Panzer not to.
I'd say that was probably possible, because I don't think Mulcahy did much more after
Did he do Highlander 2, Russell Mulcahy?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry, Russell. You fucked up, mate. And I can talk to you like that because you did some amazing work for Duran Duran back in the 80s, back in the day, with loads of their videos. Very, very innovative style. Highlander, the original film, was absolutely fucking awesome, but you royally fucked yourself with Highlander 2. And you know, you don't need chastising from some twat like me. You know, you're older than me, you've seen it and done it, and you're a fucking amazing movie director.
Oh, and I've got to give you props for Resurrection, by the way. We've also with Chris Ryan, but I fucking love that film.
Oh, okay.
He's brilliant in that, and he directs a good film.
But he knows in his heart of hearts that he fucked up on Highlander.
Yeah, I don't think it got the traction he really, really wanted. Either that, he was told this is what it is, or he didn't have time to rewrite it. And
yeah, I suppose with it being, you know, a sci-fi kind of flick,
yeah,
maybe
sci-fi was
extremely
big,
limited in terms of what he could do with his shots and stuff. It wasn't an organic film. There was hardly, in fact, I don't think there was any. I suppose that's the essence of the film. But there was hardly any greenery or landscapes.
Exactly.
And stuff. So it was very difficult for him to. He was very constricted, really, by.
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a new team of chairmen and committees,
probably,
you know, who came in and went, do you know
some fucking focus group.
Yeah, you know, who sat around the table and went, you know what would be really cool if we made them all fucking aliens.
Oh, and I've got an amazing idea. Why don't we have a fucking fight in the factory? This is great because not only is she pretty as an Asian girl, she's got lovely tits.
I recognise her for something. I just can't remember what films I've seen.
She's quite pretty. She's not skinny. She's actually, you know, a reasonably good size to get your hands on stuff. And he thinks this condom is sweet of some kind or a pill or something. He thinks you've got to eat it like some sort of gum. But she said no glove, no love. In other words, you don't put it on, you can't do me. But
he kind of ignores it.
He ignores it. She's got a nice bum, you know. She's
I don't. I've got to understand. He hasn't stuck anything in yet, and she's already fucking
coming.
I despise those kind of.
But then again, she's a prostitute, so she would fake it anyway.
Yeah.
But the scream obviously denotes that he's done something either anal
or he's changed,
or he's killed her.
Yeah.
But you never see her again. And in the same way that the Kurgan had, "Hi, I'm Candy," you know, of course you are. You never hear of any murder of a prostitute, so you're guessing that maybe he hasn't done anything bad. But I think that probably would have been quite good. I don't mean good in that. But I think it would have been quite good as a form of showing what a nasty guy is.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Then again,
maybe that would have just brought more heat.
Yeah, I mean with Kane and that they've already done it. You know, he burned down that fucking village. Yeah. He basically cut his mate's head off, to be fair.
Actually, it's not that bad, is it? He's burned down one village 400 years ago. He's done fuck all since then.
That's a good point. You know,
it's not that bad. Conor McLeod's done a lot worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's destroyed a few factories. You know, it's like, you know, he hasn't been bumming his mates. So
this scene is very reminiscent of the first film, and this is what we've been talking about all the way so far, really, that it's a nod back to the first film, which is great.
Which is probably why the film's better.
Exactly.
It reminds you of the first one. Yeah, absolutely.
This scene is very reminiscent of when she goes to the library and she talks to that guy, I can't remember his name, is it Jerry or something, who says what you've got here is a guy that's, you know, been alive for 400 years, pretending to croak every once in a while and leaving his property to children who've been corpses for years. And she says that's not possible. And now she's explaining to him about the fact that this guy has been kicked out of the Clan MacLeod, and she's starting to form an opinion about as to why there's a linkage between the MacLeods and the Mountains of Neri and Nakano. It's a nice bit of exposition. She's talking about the signatures and the fact that he went to a Highland gathering for the MacLeod clan in a certain year and that sort of stuff.
It's a very quick connection though, isn't it?
It is. It's a kind of a jumping straight
a jump. I can't imagine an archaeologist will suddenly go, yeah, let's check out if the ordinary's been kicked out. You know, there's nothing to say they had any children.
Exactly.
So why on earth would you suddenly rush to the conclusion that, we've got to go and find Conor MacLeod because there's another Conor MacLeod. He must be related.
What's really, I suppose the issue there is that she said that she traced the tartan back to a branch of the MacLeod clan that had been disowned by his father, and therefore it was to do with a man called Conor MacLeod was that branch that broke off. So therefore it's his tartan that was in the
Yeah, but that's
Japanese mountain, so therefore it must be related to Connor MacLeod, or to that branch of the MacLeod family.
The thing is, that's as far as you'd go. I don't think they would go any further. They would just say, we found it really interesting that we found Scottish tartan in a Japanese...
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I'm now going to look for him. And it's like, yes, but you're working on the basis that he's immortal and you're not supposed to know that. And she'd be like, oh, okay.
And not only that, they've kind of stopped talking about the actual, the cave anyway.
Yes, that's all. Fuck that now.
Like, fuck it, don't give a shit about the cave anymore.
Yeah, we found the body of Nakano. He's here. He's still talking, by the way. He's Edgar. We don't give a fuck. I'm not bothered. Yeah, I'm not fucking bothered, mate.
It's kind of shit.
This was the bit with the past catching up with the future.
Yes.
Nice reference. Do you want to talk us? He mentions something there, doesn't he?
He does. He talks about the past catches up, doesn't he? He's walking round. They're talking about that lovely piece of armour. And he's saying that he recognises it and all this sort of stuff because he's also a historian, you know, which we all know he's not really. He was actually there at the time. So, you know, this goes on. Oh, we were talking the other day about that, you know, it's the past that reflects your futures and things like that. And this is kind of what he's talking about in a certain roundabout way, that your past basically, you know, rules your future because the past creates your future because that is your life.
This is funny. MacLeod's spelt wrong.
Yeah, it's got an MC. It's an M-A-C.
It's spelled M-C-C-L-E-O-D on that fax. And a fax is ludicrous because obviously it's such a long time ago it's a fax machine.
That's right, kids. Back in the day we used to have something called a fax machine. None of this email through your iPhone.
Exactly. But yeah, it's MacLeod, which basically means son of cloud, as opposed to MacLeod, which is son of Clud. So the real name is M-A-C-L-E-O-D, whereas they put MacLeod, which is a completely different surname. It probably exists, but it's a completely different surname. Yet she's still going to go on the tail of Connor MacLeod spelt differently.
That's what I mean. It doesn't make any sense. She just suddenly makes a connection, and now all of a sudden she's at Nash's place.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And she's not even talking about that this weird guy just walked around and vanished pretty much in front of her and set something on fire without touching it. She's like, don't care.
Yeah, it's
poor writing. It
doesn't make any sense whatsoever, does it?
No, we were chatting earlier on. We watched this the first time. That it was like there must be little scenes that were cut that explained certain things. Either that, or they just couldn't be bothered and thought, "Fuck it, let's just get straight to the point."
Yeah.
Which kind of ruins anything, especially for a film that if this was made in 2014, there would be little bits where it explains.
Oh yeah,
all those things that are going on.
The audience would demand it.
Yeah,
and the writers would be expected to do it because they know that film production. I mean, even in the 90s to a certain extent,
it was starting to get cleverer.
Exactly, and film production now is more of a marketing thing than anything.
Absolutely.
You know, they think about their target audience, they think about engagement, demographic, mixed cultures, you name it.
Yeah, and it's disgusting too. And I hate this shot. If you're watching this with us, there's a scene where the building where Nash is inside is obviously fighting, but for some reason there's this giant fucking shadow on the wall of people doing exactly the same thing.
Why would it be outside?
Why would it be outside? Exactly. That makes no sense whatsoever.
He does his little laugh again. Well, yeah, bang! Chops his head off. There can be only one. Stop it! I'm not immortal. Oh, sorry. That's the kind of thing, isn't it?
Pretty much.
It doesn't explain why he does this either.
No, he's obviously getting back in shape or something. But what was I saying? Oh, anyway. So Kevin Smith basically says that if they make a film for like 5...
And where does he go, sorry? He just fucks off.
Yeah, just pisses off while this guy washes his face down. It makes no sense. He's obviously going to get changed, or he's having a bit of a wank and a pot noodle, as you were saying about.
Yeah, he's having a Scotch egg and a wank.
Yeah. So he says if you make a film for 5 million, they would spend 15 to 20 million marketing it to get it going. So he couldn't understand, I could have done with that 15 million to make my film, but you would rather spend 5 million on me and then spend 20 million or whatever it is to make the film marketable. It makes no sense.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So imagine this film was probably made for, I would say, less than 25, maybe 30 million if you're lucky. And then I bet they...
Yeah, I would be very surprised if it was more than 20. I would probably guess at maybe 18 or 19
Possibly.
million.
I mean, if you think that...
Think about exchange rates and the year. 20 years ago, 18 or 19 is probably more like 30 now, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they made Robo for 14 million.
Right.
So, and that was like...
86. 85?
87, I believe.
Right.
So
that's when it was released, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably
So it had been made in 86.
Yeah.
Oh, first sex scene again.
Yeah. She's sort of spilling out of there, but not quite. She's just managed to keep
it's disappointing as well because she's obviously rather attractive, and
her bodice ripping.
We need to see more boobage. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in a hay barn. It's quite romantic, which is what you expect because, you know, trying to get the romance of the era, as well as the fact that Conor McLeod is more of a lover than a fighter, which is what he's always been. He's quite happy to settle down rather than fight.
And it's obvious to me that he comes here a lot with women because his mate goes straight to there.
Yeah, he knows exactly where he'll be. You know, excuse me, where's Conor McLeod? I think you know where he is. Oh, he'll be in the hay barn. Fucking yes, in a bit. Exactly.
It goes straight there, and she looks really sultry there. I like
she does. She looks like she wants him to come back and finish the job.
Excuse me, everyone.
Yeah, he's telling him now that the Russian? It's not Russian. The French Revolution is kicking off.
Yeah,
and that she is not going to be safe because she's obviously part of the aristocracy, and he is ultimately a revolutionary. Because even though he's fraternising with the aristocracy, and you originally think that he's an aristocrat himself, he's not, because he's basically getting involved in the overthrowing of the aristocrats, which is why there's a real clear and present risk of him having Madame la Guillotine to chop his head off, which is not a good thing.
I'm disappointed in him there. He's going off again. You know, every time I spend time with my girlfriend in that way, if you're going to go, it's never like, I better get my coat on. There's always another quickie before you go. I'm sorry, there is.
There's always very, very rapid.
You know, she'll hate me that I just said that. She's going to listen to this and saying, what the fuck are you telling people that you've never met what we get up to? I would love to take you through it, but I'm not going to. So... back to the story.
You see, she's hot on his ass all the time, isn't she? She's always getting involved, getting all up in his shit, and he's not happy at this moment, even though he fancies her, and he remembers when he used to do Kate, or whatever her name was, up in the hay barn.
I just want to point out that James is actually talking about Christopher Lambert's Conor McLeod and not my missus, and what we get up to. Yeah, just so we get that straight. Yeah, and I'm sorry, baby, for listening.
Yeah, she's just having it. Look, he's going, look, for fuck's sake, I've just done loads of kendo, but I don't know where my mate's gone, and now you're getting all up in my shit, and I want to go home. I want to have a pot noodle and a wank and go to bed. And she's, look, it's getting light out there, look, love.
That's really bad lighting, that is.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be at night. That is just a giant spotlight. That's
it is, yeah.
And it's not been put out properly because...
Oh.
I forgot that he's got fucking Jedi powers, that he knows people are behind
But what's really funny is that he kind of went, oh, there's someone here, like they're immortal.
And she's looking right at him.
It was literally a nanosecond before. And whereas Ramirez knew the Kurgan was there even before he started to beat the door down.
Absolutely. He's obviously not as powerful.
Exactly.
And it's not only that either.
But I think that he is.
He should be. He was the last one.
I would have thought that he took on Ramirez's power. So therefore, he's more powerful than Ramirez.
Well, the only issue is that he was talking to Kate and just thinking, "Fucking look at you! I can't wait to bend you." Hold on.
Oh, yeah, she distracted him.
Yeah, and not only that, she must be looking right at him. How did she not see that he was there?
Exactly.
It's the poorest bit. What is she? Fucking Mr. Magoo.
Or it could be, yeah, but you could argue that he's a sorcerer, so he might have just literally appeared out of nowhere.
But even then, she didn't react when he was there.
And she just went, "Oh, he's there. It's behind you." So
exactly. You know, Mrs. Magoo. That's what we'll call her.
Oh, here we go. Right, this is a reasonably good fight. There's quite a bit of acrobatics. There's a nice little bit of karate there with the kick, or the Kurgan.
Yeah, you can obviously see the progression of fights as well.
Yeah.
They get gradually better.
Well, they got worse in Highlander 2, but the first film was great because the Kurgan actually high kicks Conor McLeod in the first film. Do you remember when they fight with the helicopter comes down later on, and he goes, "Nice to see you, Kurgan," that sort of stuff, and he goes, "There could be only one," and he does that roundhouse and kicks him in the face. You know, that's great. You know, that shows real disrespect, kicking somebody in the head. I kicked her in the head
again.
But the trampoline sequence is fucking stupid. He's a sorcerer. He wouldn't even need the trampoline. And the trampoline just happens to be positioned next to some spurious scaffolding with ropes to swing on. You know, what is it? Is it some form of fucking little sort of funhouse, wacky warehouse type thing for kids. I mean, what the fuck is that? The scaffolding, he's got a fucking aerial slide there. What's it for? Are the workmen sort of building the inside of that fucking building by swinging around like fucking chimpanzees or something? For fuck's sake.
Oh, I've got to say, I do like this bit. Very reminiscent now of, as you said earlier on, Quantum of Solace.
Indeed, yeah, that fight, yeah.
They obviously watched this and thought, well, that looked really cool.
And, you know, and lots of other Japanese, which is great. You know, they're like there's references to Japan.
And here we go again. Look, Connor's getting his ass fucking whooped again.
Yeah.
400 fucking years later, and he's still a pussy. I'm sorry, I've had enough.
And why is he talking to him? At this stage, he could have just gone chop. But, his sword's broken. What I don't understand is how the windows all smashed just because his sword was broken.
Because he said that the sword takes on its own, the Chinese geezer, he said that it takes on its own, you know, it's controlled by his master.
So Nakano, the Japanese sorcery man, said that... okay. So does that mean that Connor's lost all of his power now?
I doubt it, but I would imagine that a lot of his power is in the sword, which is why he needs to go back and reforge it, which we see in a little while.
Good point. The sword is an extension of the soul, according to the samurai.
Precisely. Evidently, whoever wrote this one was obviously a massive fan of Japanese culture and the samurai.
I like that. He tells her to stay away. That's very, again, reminiscent of, you only have one life if you value it. Go home. After they've had that first fight in the first film where Brenda witnesses the Kurgan trying to kill Connor MacLeod, and then we have that ridiculously stupid detective pulling the gun on her, and then for some reason he's arrested her, or he's going to interrogate her. But does he take her back to the precinct? No, he takes her to a fucking steakhouse where they're playing pool and gives her a drink.
He's taking her for a pint. He basically just wants to get in her pants, and I've got to say, I can't blame him.
I'd like to walk you home, Brenda. That's what he says to her. And cookies time, just.
Oh, cookies! Here we go. It's become a thing for the Grumpy Guide that we must have cookies.
This is what we do at the Grumpy Guide, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do you get amazing commentary on films, you also get double chocolate.
Oh, I got a special one for you here, matey.
Oh, they're different.
These are, look at these.
Oh, fuck. Oh.
Get that down, you boy.
Oh, Muffin. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to wish that you were here, because these are like mega chocolate chip amazing cookies. What I love about them is the fact that they are an unusual shape. They're like properly like home baked ones. They're absolutely gorgeous.
And I've just taken a photograph for you so you can see it.
We can put the photo of that up on the podcast.
Absolutely, I've taken a photograph just so you can be jealous.
Oh, it's lovely. That lovely chewiness. So he's gone back. He's gone back to fix his sword. He's had a rough night. He's had a fight. Nearly got killed by some mental sorcerer. So I'm just going to have a fucking orange.
And not only that either. He's just been stabbed, and there's no actual showing of it. You know, like they've completely forgotten he got stabbed.
He heals, but his clothes don't. But yet his clothes seem to be sort of immortal as well. Mental. Right. Back in the 18th century now, or is it the 19th century? 19th century, isn't it? Early 1800s, 1812, 18, something like that. He's now talking to... Connor MacLeod's now in prison, awaiting execution for being a revolutionary. So...
He's got his mate with him, who's obviously an immortal.
But what I don't understand... He's awaiting execution for being a revolutionary. That wasn't what was happening in the French Revolution. They were executing the aristocracy. The aristocracy would have been in jail. He would have been out there chopping their heads off.
Unless he was considered to be part of aristocracy, because he would have had a lot of money by this point.
Yeah, possibly.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have got into that house in the first place to see Sarah. So, there's no way they would let a peasant in to see his daughter. Wouldn't happen.
Good point. That is a good point. What we're seeing here now is that's another immortal who's taken his place. And you made an interesting observation about this. Everybody's saying it's Connor MacLeod.
The thing is, Connor MacLeod's been in prison for so long, the guards would know it wasn't him. No way would they sort of go, You're Conor McCloud. Oh, you must have, that was what it was and just let him go. No, he's completely changed appearance. We know it's not him.
And she's crying like it's him, and she's seen the head.
Yeah,
and
it's not held it up in front of her.
Yeah.
She's only about 20 feet away. It's not like she wouldn't recognise it.
Exactly, yeah. It's crazy. It's like she forgot what he looked like.
It was the days when people didn't have glasses. That's what it was.
Good point.
Yeah, I've told you, everybody in this is Mr. Magoo. Nobody can see fuck all.
Kind of like selective blindness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so she's pestering him. This is quite interesting because in the first film, it's him that turns up at her flat when he offers, says, "Do you cook?" And we should have dinner or something. She's turned up at his flat and he's letting her in. Interesting. I quite like that.
I like the fact that she's obviously aching for him. She's so interested in just him. You can just tell. For some reason, we all know that Conor McCloud seems to have mystical powers when it comes to women.
Yeah,
it's part of the quickening, obviously.
Maybe it's because he can't give them children, so they know that it's just basically they're just going to get an amazing lip spreading exercise.
And not only that, you'd think about it. He's been around for 500 years at this point.
Oh, your observation on that photograph.
We were basically pointing out there's a picture of his son on there, and for some reason his son signed the picture.
To Dad, all the best.
What?
to Dad, stay cool. Your son.
We also.
These are good. Nice Photoshop.
I like these pictures, but she doesn't make the connection that that's Thomas Nash, and it looks exactly the same. There's no difference.
Did it say Thomas Nash today?
Not Thomas Nash. Russell Nash. Thomas Nash is that guy who makes clothing. So Russell Nash. And she doesn't make the connection at all.
Ridiculous.
She is the worst archaeologist on the planet.
Yeah, she's shit, because archaeologists are normally
very astute in what they're looking at.
They're like detectives, they're just like...
They're historic detectives.
Exactly that. And she kind of neglects to pick up on any of the visual clues that she's looking at to see that it's Conor McCloud.
Yeah, and she's obviously shit. She is. And not only that, she's now looking at a painting that looks just like her with red hair, and she's not even connecting to that either.
And another thing as well is that he's only just recently come back to this flat, right? His flat shouldn't have changed since 1986.
And it hasn't.
And it's changed completely. So someone's been in there like fucking...
updating it.
I've gone in there and done a home makeover for him while he's been away.
And cleaned the fucking thing.
Yeah.
He's obviously had people coming in cleaning. I've always liked this scene, I love the little smiley gives because you can see that Sarah's happy.
He's heartbroken though to start off with that she's got a child.
But look at the little smiley makes. It's such a good piece of acting from Lambert. He does those whimsical smiles really well. Like he's looked back and thinking, "I'm happy, you're happy," and he moves on because he's used to losing people. That's what it is. Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, that is a lovely bit of acting. He sees that she has the child that he could never give her, and that she's happy and she's safe, and the epitome of loving somebody is that you want them to be happy, and if they can still be happy without you, then you would prefer that above anything else.
Absolutely.
You'd rather have them happy without you than sad with you. So it's a lovely bit of acting, isn't it? Because it's a real selfless act. Exactly. And that is what Conor McCloud's all about. He's about sacrifice.
Absolutely. And to be fair, Lambert delivers it so fucking well.
Oh, this guy... This guy, another actor woefully neglected for pretty much all of his career.
I agree.
He did Highlander, a film that he did before that was like a film called Subway or something, a French film.
I've seen that. I've got that film actually.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's good in every film that he needs to do.
He did a film called Night Moves, I think.
I've seen that one.
That's great. That's about a serial killer.
Yeah, and he plays a chess master.
Exactly. And then this one, Resurrection. He did something called... the Sicilian, is it?
I've also got that, the Sicilian. He starred in, for me, it was a terrible film, but he also starred in Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
And he fucking nails his character.
He's a great actor.
He was in Ghost Rider 2 as well.
He's a brilliant actor.
And he's been very neglected, I agree.
If you look at it, in the same way that Jean-Claude Van Damme didn't get the sort of films that he really should have been in, very underrated actor, really.
We know JCVD can actually act. Exactly. If you watch that film, what I've just called it, JCVD, where he basically plays himself in a weird situation.
He's great.
in that film, he is fucking stunning. He does this one scene where he talks to the camera for must be at least 10 minutes.
Really?
And he's crying in front of it and all this sort of stuff. And no person out there considers Van Damme to be a great actor.
No, he is great.
You're out of your fucking mind.
Exactly. You see, again, this is the reason why I love this film compared to the Highlander 2. Is that there's plenty of nods back to the original. It's giving us a solid grounding, a solid base to Connor MacLeod's history, which is woefully ignored in the second film. There's virtually no reference other than the fact that he talks about Brenda once or twice. Here she picks up the little block which is about for making a samurai sword, and she's starting to make a connection with the fact that Connor's gone to Scotland.
She also heard it on the phone though, didn't she?
Yeah,
heard it on the
exactly.
Phone, so she knows he's there.
And she knows his sword's broken. So eventually she's going to work out from here that it's to do with making another sword. So she obviously thinks that for some reason he's gone back to Scotland to make a sword, but he's not going to have the right pieces because she has the block that he is obviously...
He's going to require. He looks pissed off as well, that he can't seem to get it right.
Yeah, he's just throwing away these shit pieces of steel that he's trying to forge the sword out of. It's just useless, and he's thinking, where is that block of fucking steel that I can make my sword from?
It's all down to the folds though, and when it comes to Japanese samurai sword.
For the Masamune that he's got, the metal in the blade has been folded more than 2,000 times.
Exactly.
According to Brenda Wyatt.
So for it to get destroyed like that, I'm very shocked. Maybe it's just the age of the steel.
Making a samurai sword is a massive process. It's both metallurgy and alchemy and spiritualism. And all of those things have to come together to make a samurai sword.
And what is this cunt going to do now? Despite that, once again, this just shows how fucking evil he is.
He's just found a Fabergé egg.
A Fabergé egg. These things are worth...
With one of the crystals from the Crystal Maze in it. Connor MacLeod obviously won it from Richard O'Brien. Sorry, US folks, it's a reference to a game show back in the day. Another cookie.
I've just destroyed.
Oh, this is class. Connor MacLeod's got an answering machine.
And cigars.
Rather than voicemail, because obviously it's 1994 and not now, where mobile phones were still not in massive amount of use.
Thieving bastard. He just stole all his cigars. I'd be pissed at that. I love a good stogie. What is he doing?
Not smoking it though, is he?
That just shows how evil he is. There's the picture again, look, which is obviously a publicity shot.
To Dad, love Jan.
These are obviously publicity shots for when he goes to auditions.
Yeah.
I always love the fact they do that, because he's like, look at me smile, I've got a perfect background. It's pathetic.
To Dad, to Connor, all the best, John Nash.
And why the fuck would he call him Connor? It's his dad.
No, he didn't. I was just taking the piss.
Oh, right, I just...
It said to Dad. But I was just ripping the piss that he might have written. Connor MacLeod, all the best, John Nash, sort of thing.
Rubbish.
I'm here all week, sort of thing. I do weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Oh,
hello. What are you doing here? I've come for another shag. Fuck off, I want... Oh, you've got the block, okay.
It's not only that, she completely finds him in the middle of nowhere.
Hello. How?
She walked... I don't know. I don't know. I think a pussy found him. That's what it is. It was obviously tracking him down.
How would she find him? You're right. Because he's not at the castle. He's not gone... Right. History lesson. He's not gone to the home of the MacLeod clan. Now, the home of the MacLeod clan is the Isle of Skye. Their castle is called Dunvegan Castle on Skye. If she was going to go and find him anywhere in Scotland, you'd go there. But no, she's gone to the tower where he used to live with Heather. She won't know that because it won't have been documented anywhere, because it was 1542 and nothing will have got written down there. You'd have to be a king or a queen to have anything documented in 1540s. So how does she know where to find him?
And there we go, we've got like a Rocky-inspired training scene now.
This is great though. He's out on the lake, very reminiscent of the first film, The Lake, where he was with Ramirez. It's not the same.
What are you talking about, you haggis?
I don't like boats, I don't like water. I'm a man, not a fish.
With the worst Scottish accent ever. And Ramirez with the worst Egyptian accent with a Scottish accent. That makes no sense.
You complain endlessly, and you smell like a dung heap, and you've no knowledge whatsoever of your potential. Now, get out! Help me, I'm drowning! You can't drown, you fool, you're immortal! Or etc. that's what it is. Now this is a massive training session, like you said, it's wicked, it's just like Rocky. I'm expecting him to run up a hillside and shout, Drago! Or, in this case, Kane!
It makes me laugh, you know, they make all these films with something to do with Scotland, and the one person they should put in these films is Billy Connolly.
Yeah!
You know, having shot, hello Connor, how are you? Let me tell you this story. I remember watching you fight the Kurgan.
What you need is some jojoba. Stood atop a mountainside, look. Drago!
He must have been freezing his fucking knob off.
No, Scotland's like that,
it's
brilliant.
fucking freezing.
You can tell that he's got lots of memories.
That's what this place is for. It's kind of like recharging the batteries.
It is going back to his roots.
He obviously needed it. He hasn't been home in some time, I think.
A long time.
He even mentions it, doesn't he? That he hasn't been there in a long time, and he came there to find himself, in a sense. Well, I can't say I blame him.
She tells him in a minute that she knows who he is. He says that he gets used to being alone or something. Very, again, you know, they mentioned that in the second film, but to hilarity. You can see the pain in his eyes. He's sick of fighting. He just wants it all over. He wants to grow old and die and live the rest of his life in peace.
And that goes back to Lambert being a great actor. He delivers so much in his eyes.
Definitely.
He always looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders.
He didn't want any of it. Ramirez came and found him and dropped him. He was banished from his village. He would have been happy. Like he said, I mean, 4 words that he speaks summarise Connor McLeod's whole reason for being from the first film. You better go, Connor. I'm not going anywhere. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He is where he is. He wanted to stay with his family,
grow old,
in his village, grow old and die, and have children. That won't please Heather, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's the difference between this. This actually shows the curse of what it would probably be like to be immortal.
Exactly.
You know, they do the same sort of thing, what they do now in Doctor Who.
Oh,
I'm sorry everyone.
She's just summarised who he is. The flames of passion are growing, as we've just seen at the bottom.
Along with other things that are growing. We've got to say this.
She's pulling him forward in a very demonstrative way. She's offering herself up to him in it's a very obvious offering of oneself. She's desperate to be explored. I don't like the choice of undercrackers that she's wearing, although he does get them off in a minute, which is fine. In previous podcasts I have mentioned that I am a pervert. Bit of bush. Oh. He's enjoying looking at that as well. She hasn't gone completely bald. He's just touching there, which is lovely.
Which is very strange for a film back then to show that kind of thing. I mean, that's very graphic.
I quite like the fact that there's a bit of pube on there. I like the fact that it's blue as well. Previous version, I think it was blue in the first film slightly. There's lots of nipple sucking in the first film. Her backside is
amazing.
Lovely
I like
backside.
It's awesome.
That's a great shot of her arse there. They should have done more actually. I think probably. Oh, that's lovely. Well, I think that they probably should have spent maybe an hour and a half on that, and then maybe 10 minutes of just fighting. That would have been much better, I think. They're obviously doing it into the early hours as well, because you could see the flickering light in the window.
Agreed.
He hammered that sword, and he obviously decided to hammer her as well all night.
And I just wish you could see James's face. This
is interesting. At the moment, he is still Russell Nash. This woman, the fucking waitressy woman, goes, "Mr. McClone, there's a telephone call for you." Hang on a minute.
How does she know?
No wonder it is going like, how do people know I'm here? Because you're fucking telling everybody that you're Colin McClone, you twat.
And not only that, this guy calls him.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell him he's going there, does he?
Oh, there you go. Like he's talking to Del Boy again. Yeah, look, I'm just on my way to see Raquel. Tell Rodney I'll see him later.
Now that would be cool, wouldn't it? I know he falls in
Tell
Highlander.
Rodney he's a plonker. Sorry, folks. This is again only Fools and Horses references. If you're this is ridiculous. Welcome back to the USA, Mr. McLeod. You're fucking 8 years old.
I don't think you're allowed to travel like that.
Or is it Mr. Does she call him Mr. McLeod or Mr. Nash?
Mr. Nash, John Nash, isn't it?
Because I could have sworn that she called him Mr. McLeod on that on that woman on the desk. I could have sworn that. Maybe I've just imagined.
I'm sure it's Nash. I'm sure it is.
I could have sworn that she said they're welcome back to the USA, Mr. McLeod.
Oh,
we'd have to listen to that again.
Well, you guys can point it out to us because we're obviously.
Because if she calls him Mr. McLeod, doesn't make any sense because he's adopted by Russell Nash.
Exactly. Perhaps you guys can tell us on YouTube which one it says. Obviously, we're having to watch this with the sound off because we don't want copyright issues. And
exactly.
Like
and you know, for the purposes of like a video commentary as well, the reason why we do it with the sound off is so that you can play this back without having this kind of echo effect or whatever if it's slightly off. Very 1990s bad guy, as you mentioned, Matrix.
It's a very Matrix look, isn't it, with Mario Van Peebles, who obviously needed a hit after Jaws: The Revenge,
Yeah.
and then starred in this, so he didn't get that hit. But you know, he's somebody who's really kind of vanished, Mario Van Peebles. I ain't seen him in years.
No, the thing is, he's pushing right into everybody, and everybody's getting well fucked off. But you'd sort of imagine that Connor McLeod would be
A bit more polite.
nice. He'd say, "Excuse me, my son's in trouble. Could I get to the front?" And people
I'm
would be
not
like,
too
"Yeah,
sure.
no
I think
problem."
that's the thing about human emotions, because he is human, no matter what shit they said in the second one. You know, if somebody like your child's in trouble or anything like that, I would imagine fuck everybody else. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I suppose so. He's got a sword somewhere, but you can't see his sword. He's falling over. He's running all over the place, pushing people over. Look at that. They all try and grab him, but for some reason they miss, and now they've got him. So now Russell Nash is now, or Connor McLeod's now under arrest. Get in the car, or whatever it is. Little punk. He calls him a little punk, doesn't he, or something stupid, which is ridiculous.
And not only that, I just want to point out that he's standing in front of an airport, quite a busy airport, and nobody sees him change.
Exactly,
back into
or
Kane.
shove a little kid in the car.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck. What?
So it's just mental, and he's just realised that he's changed because obviously it was his father just before he got in the car. This scene is very reminiscent of the Kurgan's Wild Ride, as it's called, where he takes Brenda and drives through the city streets of New York, singing "New York, New York, excuse me," as he's running people over.
That's right.
It's
and also the train scene from the second one.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of almost like they have to do this to show the evilness.
And more than likely, this was the bits that tested quite high when they had people laughed or they liked that scene, so they're like, "Oh, we must put another one of those in."
Maybe, or it's just that they're following some kind of Highlander formula, and that you have to have a scene like this to constantly have that reference to the first film. He's getting really fucked off now, or the Americans would say he's getting really pissed, because he's been having his chain yanked by these detectives while he knows that, you know, somebody's abducted his son and could be doing all sorts. So what I thought was unusual as well is that in this film Mario Van Peebles has got a black tongue.
Yeah, they obviously darkened his mouth.
Yeah, why did they make the inside of his mouth black? Is it just to make him look more grim? And
I would imagine it's because he hasn't cleaned his teeth.
but would his tongue go black?
Think like the Penguin from Batman Returns.
Oh yeah,
I would imagine it's that kind of thing. That if you're
all rotting teeth.
your
and
teeth
stuff.
with rot and stuff like that, and he has got black teeth as well. So
Yeah.
somebody's thought about it. I think they haven't just gone, "Oh look, he's got perfect teeth," because he wouldn't have, would he? He would have caked with gingivitis and all kinds of fucked up
Yeah,
shit.
especially if they've been in a cave for 500 years or
Sucking
whatever.
Willy, you know.
Yeah. This is crazy because they've got nothing on him, so they let him go. Now, in the first film, Russell Nash knows his rights, you know, and I quote, "Am I under arrest? No, not yet. then we're through. And he just leaves. So he could have done that the first time around. He go, you did this before in 1986, fucking see you later. And then walked off.
And not only that, you would have thought you want to get out as quick as possible, not sit there going, oh, for fuck's sake.
Again, another nod to the first film. Your girlfriend is quite a screamer. All that sort of stuff, you know. Only this one has more comedy effect, doesn't it, with the voicemail message?
I can only imagine that this is basically just the first film. Again.
It just goes, I have your son or something, doesn't it?
Oh God, and that kid delivers really bad. He's like, Dad.
Yeah, he just goes, Dad! Like that. It's just
really
ridiculous.
Bad, really bad. Go on, give her another one before you go, I would.
You see, this is very reminiscent of the first film because even though this is his girlfriend, it's very similar to Rachel. Rachel Ellenstein says, you're not coming back. Even if you kill him, you're not coming back. Sweet Rachel, you always knew this would happen. Russell Nash dies tonight. So it's kind of, again, he knows that potentially he could be killed, so he gives her the ring and leaves because the ring was given to him by somebody that looked identical to her, because it's the same actress.
Yes.
So he's giving it back, even though she never gave him in the first place. But he's acknowledging the fact that
he might think of it as like a reincarnation of it. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it could be very much like that.
This is a very spiritual type film. It is.
And here we are. Dad! Sit here. Little Ninja Turtle kid. But we're in a church, I think, but for some bizarre reason there's like a drum kit behind him on the right hand side that we just saw.
Or maybe it's an evangelist.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. And there you go, lots of drum.
God save the Lord!
Yeah, it could be something like that. It does look quite, it does quite look like those kind of gospel type churches. Well, it would be because it's New York and I think they have quite a lot of gospel churches there. So he's
excuse me.
He's confronting him over the fact that he has his son. He's yanking his chain again about where is his son, but I have him.
I love that line.
Taking the piss out of the fact that he can't have kids when he himself can't have children. None of the immortals can have.
I mean about him talking about his little tiny immortal pecker.
Yeah. The prize was never yours. And that's an interesting concept, isn't it, about the prize never being yours?
Well, we discussed this earlier on, that, you know, as you said, that the first film had a beginning, a middle and an end. I don't think they intended to have sequels out of it, because he literally got what he wanted. He became the one. He got all the powers. They're all dead. And then when the film obviously hit big, they went, shit, we must rush a crappy sequel in straight away because people want to see more of this character.
But I just find it interesting, the concept of the fact that he says the prize was never yours, and even though in the first film you kind of get the impression that the quickening that he received was something more dramatic and more significant than the previous ones, you could argue that the only reason why it looked that big and epic was the fact that he'd killed the Kurgan, who had in turn killed Ramirez, and
all those other
killed Castigier and all the rest of them. He was basically taking on the power of everybody that the Kurgan had ever killed, and that would have been a lot, because the Kurgan was the ultimate warrior, in the same way that Ramirez was a powerful guy. So he thought that he had won the prize, but he hadn't. And there's no way of saying, no, he definitely has. But,
exactly.
We don't know that now. So this does throw up quite a few interesting questions about, you know, what is the prize and what does it look like? This is sufficiently early enough on from the time when Connor thought that he'd won the prize for him to not really notice, as we said about aging. So he doesn't really know whether or not he's going to live and have children, love and grow old in the same way.
Although this film kind of nods that he really has got that now. He's got a family, and
you see, what I don't understand is that John, his son, isn't his. It's an adopted child. But at the end of the first film he says, I'm just like you. I can love and have children, live and grow old. But he can't have kids.
So that would mean he has.
Why didn't he have a child with Brenda? Unless she died too early for him to have a child.
That's possible. I would say she probably died.
But that would have been so nice if it had been his child.
It would have been nice. But then again, like we've said before, they just don't reference this kid ever again.
I would have made it his own child. He won.
It would have been something bigger if it was.
But then again, the prize was never yours, so he couldn't live and have children, love and grow old, could he?
No, because he wasn't ready, because he hasn't actually got that prize yet.
Exactly. So that was actually quite a clever move, because if they had made John Nash Russell Nash's biological child, then this wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and all these other immortals won't make any sense.
Exactly. So actually they've been quite clever. This was quite a good morphing effect actually for 1994 or whatever.
And you can tell it didn't have much of an effects budget as well, so it was pretty...
That's a funny face, isn't it, when he does that?
Yeah. This bit makes me laugh, and we're going to get the customary pipe scene from Christopher Lambert, who in any fight scene he does with the sword must end up with a pipe at some point.
Does he get the pipe?
He does, keep watching.
Because that's something I noticed.
Wait, there it is!
Yay!
There's his pipe.
Round of applause for the pipe, ladies and gentlemen.
Saved his life on more occasion. It also
it's the same pipe. That pipe's been very loyal to him. And actually, that pipe is now like pushing. I think in this film, the pipe was something like 30 years old. I think.
That's really
so.
Good.
It's quite for most pipes, their life as stunt pipes end after like 10 years.
I know. I was well impressed because in 1998 he got the Oscar for best pipe. In an action film, you know, it's
an amazing performance. Very subtle as well. I noticed.
I agree, very, very subtle. And he works really, really well with Christopher Lambert.
He won't work with anyone else, apparently.
No, not at all. Apparently, they offered him a role back in.
He was in Super Mario Brothers, the film, as part of a plumbing network, but that was boring for him. And unfortunately, sadly, in
don't
very hard for me to talk about it.
You're going to bring it down, mate. Don't. In 2002, unfortunately, he passed away from rust. And
his career went down the tubes.
Oh, what are we talking about?
He turned to drugs. He turned to drugs in shortly after this film was made. Actually, that little pipe.
He became a crack pipe.
Oh Christ! The fight sequences were rubbish in this. The fact that he got chopped in half and he could bring himself back together again was stupid. But this fight's quite good because it's like a double cut, which is synonymous with samurai. The stomach and the spinal cord. And then obviously head has separated.
And not only that, Christopher Lambert looking awesomely cool as he does
and
it.
He says 5 words, there can be only one. And this time he is.
Well, at least we think he is, until they did the next one.
Because obviously in the arc, the story arc, Highlander 2 hasn't happened yet, so again we get the I become immortal again. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
And then it doesn't make any sense with the one they did after this, which I can't remember what it was called. But
after this one?
Yeah, was it Dead End or something?
Was it Endgame?
Endgame, that's it. And then they did The Source, didn't they?
Oh, The Source was shit.
Adrian Paul taking over the franchise.
The quickening sound, the quickening special effects are rubbish compared to the first film here. There's a flash of it there as the white lightning, much better than this blue flashy bollocks. It looks just like he's in a disco. The prize that he's getting now is very similar to the first film.
I can only imagine
because he raises up.
Now he has actually taken the knowledge of sorcery as well, which they totally ignore in the next one anyway.
Yeah.
All this stuff that's happened. Like we said, when it comes to these kind of films, they don't use anything that's happened in the films before it. They like writing another film with new characters.
Yeah, none at all. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because Highlander 2 set in 2024. This is 1994. So he would have had all the sorcery powers by then, yet he needs Ramirez to come and help him, and Ramirez to teach him about how to summon up the quickening.
It makes no sense.
He would have known all of it.
He knows it already. Like we said before, I think this just basically wipes the slate clean from the second one. It says ignore it, it didn't happen, this is the true sequel.
It's bizarre. It's kind of like a franchise that ignores every part of the franchise every time another chapter is written, and that makes no sense. You're telling the story of one individual, yet you erase their past, but you erase selective parts of their past and retain others.
It doesn't make much sense.
It's
almost
crazy.
like each film's an alternate timeline of what happened to that character.
It is. Every film's a reimagining, isn't it? And a reboot. It just doesn't make
that's a
any
good
sense.
point. If you think about it, this film is like a reboot of the same character every 4 years or so.
Yeah.
But they use the same actor.
It's
it's
crazy.
like they're doing Terminator.
This is silly, isn't it?
It is.
It's lovely. There's a breeze coming in off the loch. The glen is snowy and cold, and all that sort of stuff. That's lovely. It puts him back in his homeland and all that sort of stuff. But all of this is great. But it's the sword sticking out of the ground.
There's no way it's still there.
It wouldn't make any. It would become either there'd be a massive tourist information centre built over the top of it with this legend of this sword, or it'll have rushed to fuckery and would have disappeared.
Or the satanic groups would be around.
Yeah, or more likely just get stolen.
It'd have been nicked.
He says it's at peace and it's finally all over, and then that happens. That little flash of electricity over the sword is kind of like...
It's like this may be.
Yeah, and then we roll credits with the song Bonnie Portmore, sung by Lorena McKennitt, which is a song about a place in Ireland and not Scotland, which is an unusual choice, but it does sound nice. Credits wise, we've got some unusual names. We've got Banger 1, 2 and 3. Hustler 1 and 2, and then we've got the best whatever, haven't we?
Yes, Ponytail.
Ponytail. Imagine telling your family coming home that you starred in an amazing feature movie with Christopher Lambert, Highlander 3, and all your family going, "Oh, that's amazing." Your nan might be sitting there in an armchair going, "Oh, that's fantastic, well done, I'm so proud of you." And then, what part did you play? You've got like 30 people from your family in the room, and you're having to explain to them that you played Ponytail.
Absolutely amazing. I'll tell you, I'd be chuffed to bits.
Ponytail.
I am Ponytail. You'd never live it down, would you? You wouldn't live it down. Who are you? I'm Ponytail.
I'm Ponytail.
Listen, that was 20 years ago. I've been playing James Bond ever since, and now you're calling me fucking Ponytail. Yeah. What are you going on about?
There's actually a spin-off series. Starring just about Ponytail and about his life and stuff like that.
I've heard about this series. Yeah. I hear that even Lambert comes back to be a guest star occasionally because he cared about it that much. I'm so chuffed with that kind of
Because really, when you look back at all of the Highlander films,
it was really around
Ponytail. It's actually the story of Ponytail.
All this is absolute bollocks then. Basically.
Right at the beginning, when Ramirez first appears, there's a ponytail there on the end of that pony.
I see where you're going with this.
Oh yeah.
This film's got a deeper meaning.
I think Katana has a ponytail at the beginning of the second film.
That's right, he does.
I think he might have a ponytail there. There's a ponytail in this one.
And I'm very sure there's a ponytail in the next one.
I think the priest has a ponytail in Endgame.
Actually, so does Duncan, doesn't he? Doesn't he have?
He has a ponytail as well. See, this is the unlocked. This is the side of the Highlander stories, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't see. And it's all about Ponytail.
We unlocked it today.
We did. It's like an Easter egg in the film. It's a hidden thing. It's like the Illuminati. Ponytail is like the theme that runs through everything.
You do realise the Illuminati are going to come after us now. You've mentioned this, don't you?
The Ponytaily.
Yeah, the Ponytaily.
The Ponytail-arty.
If you don't get another podcast or reviews, you know what happened.
The ponytail. Yeah, his calling card is just like a ponytail or a little My Little Pony toy. Oh dear. Something that I think added to the downfall of the Pipe was that he was never credited in this film.
And you know what? That's the shit. He's obviously the real star. I mean, nothing to take away from Christopher Lambert whatsoever, but he really is the star. We all know this. He got his Oscar back in 2002. It annoys me greatly, and admittingly, he went into drugs. He passed away in 2004. It's a shame, but he always be remembered as the true legend that he is. You know, it's quite sad.
They snubbed him.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there was apparently there was accusations in the first film that he'd been welded.
Oh, come on, really? You've got to be taking the piss.
No, and I think that sorry, I'm just getting a bit emotional.
It's a shame. We should give you some backstory. You know, he got his first proper gig back in the 70 series of the $6 Million Man, where he was bent by Steve Austin. Back in the very famous episode.
That I think that's why there were accusations, aspersions that were cast then that there had been some form of weakening, and that he'd used welding to get through those stunt scenes. He denied it. They wouldn't listen. When he starred in Highlander 2, he was investigated for the welding again, even though he'd not done anything.
He hadn't done it. You know what he did it though, don't you? It was those pictures that were released when he was seen all those years ago with Kim Basinger. You know, apparently they had a bit of a fling here and there. She was quite happy with the good old piping. And unfortunately at that point they saw that he might have had a bit of work here and there.
What really let him down is that at the end of the first film, and then he came back for Highlander 2, he'd been rehammerited.
Oh no.
And people thought that he was covering something up by doing it. I mean,
that's the problem.
He tried to be all natural for the first film, but being rehammerited in the second film, he was like the pipe equivalent of David Dickinson.
Oh God! And you know that really annoys me. You see, that's the thing about Hollywood. You know, some people have to do certain things to stay fresh, but it was nobody's fucking business but his own.
Yeah.
You know, and it destroyed him in the end. It destroyed him in the end. He went on benders every week. You know, he took more and more different drugs every week. He went downhill, and if you only could have seen him when he couldn't even get to the Oscars to actually accept his award.
That will have been why the aspersions were cast about the welding, because of all those benders that he'd been out on all the weekend. He'd been overbent.
Oh God, what are we talking about?
So really, here's to you, Pipey.
Yes, Pipey.
Because he was one of the stars. Ponytail was like the underlying theme, but Pipey was
the hero of the piece.
Was definitely the hero of the piece. He was there, thick and thin. He was there from the first film all the way to the end.
And I've got to give props to Christopher Lambert, because they're originally going to recast him
as a pipe.
Well, yes, they're going to bring someone else in, and Lambert fought for him to make sure he got to stay in the Highlander series, and he actually makes a final appearance in the next film.
Really?
So
even after he'd passed away, did they do that with some form of CGI then?
Yeah, they did a proper tribute to Pipey.
That's a bit like with Bruce Lee in Game of Death.
Absolutely.
They were able to put his face in.
And they used the actual footage, didn't they, from what he actually shot. It's a wonderful story. We suggest you check it out on the Wikipedia page.
Definitely. Something else I could never quite work out about this film as well is that, and I don't know if it was just for the DVD, so it might be talking too specifically here for the DVD, especially the UK Region 2 release of the DVD. The logo Highlander 3 looks nothing like the writing that was used anywhere in the film. It doesn't even look like the logo from the first film.
I'm wondering if it's because this was taken on by a third party, the actual DVD. They'd brought it, and said, let's stick this.
Yeah,
it's cheap. The actual DVD is cheap. You can tell that.
Yeah.
There's not even subtitles on this.
There's nothing. No special features, nothing. So...
And it's a shame that 45 documentary about Pipey was on the Region 1.
The Lost Interview.
That's fucking
If anybody's ever seen that,
fucking heartbreaking.
I tear up whenever I see it, because a lot of the footage was shot before, the problem started. So here's to you, Pipey.
Oh, absolutely. We should just do a podcast on Pipey.
Definitely. With some bagpipes playing.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to our demented babblings again.
Oh, we love it when you pay attention to our nonsense. It's always fun, and it's always our pleasure.
We love Highlander. I don't think we're going to do any other. We might maybe do the first film, perhaps, but I don't know if we need to, because we've kind of covered.
I think personally that maybe we should give it to the audience to pick our next film to do.
Okay.
Because that would be a really cool idea. If you're out there, send us some ideas on the YouTube channel, let us know.
Maybe give us like a top 3 of the films you want us to cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll look and score them, which one's the...
Yeah, absolutely. And the one that gets the most votes, we will cover that in a future podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard the sort of films that we've been talking about. We did all those 2014 trailer reviews, so you could pick one of those, or... you've heard that we're into the Highlander films. We've mentioned quite a lot of other movies while we've been talking about these, so maybe you want to challenge us over some of those ones that we've mentioned, or you want to just throw us a curveball and get us a...
It'd be really good. Actually, to be fair, I'd like it even if it's a film I haven't seen before.
Me too, actually.
Because then we can just sit and watch it blind and then go, what the fuck? Or we can sit there and go, ooh, I quite like
exactly. There's nothing better than being recommended to watch something and then finding that you've discovered an absolute gem. It's similar to being introduced for the first time to a particular band, music band, and then finding that they've got a huge back catalogue for you to to listen to. That, you think that there's one song that you really love, and then you find out that they've got maybe 10 albums or something. So you've got maybe another 120 songs to get through.
Like the day I discovered The Who, and realised that they hadn't done anything new for like 15 years when I first discovered them, and then went back on their whole entire back catalogue. Yeah. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing to be able to do that. So challenge us by all means. This will be up. In the meantime, we'll have a look at stuff that we quite fancy reviewing, but we're happy to take suggestions.
Absolutely. Pass it on to your friends. Share this on Twitter, Facebook, anything you want to do to pass this on if you've enjoyed what you've listened to. If you haven't, let us know. We're more than welcome to... Well, if you don't like it, we're more than welcome to pummel you into the ground. I love a good argument, absolutely. So, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, little kiddies who shouldn't be listening to this, but if you are, very naughty, but I won't tell you parents. I'm Adi.
I'm James. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.